Hello everyone and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. And once again, although I say every time I do one of these videos it's a rarity that Norwich City are being linked with a player, it's not so much the case anymore. They're going to make yet another signing. This will be their third signing over the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're really being active in the transfer market, even with player departures, but it looks as if we have got an incoming to Norwich City in what could be the very next few days. A player who's actually currently travelling to England to undergo a medical. It is the Croatian youth international Ante Crnac. No, I haven't spent 5 minutes trying to pronounce his name for this video. But it looks as if Norwich City are finally going to get their man after the deal for the Turkish youth international Bertrand Yildirim was not going to happen, albeit that looked very likely. It was he'd flown out to Norwich to have his medical, but then he failed it after a knee injury issue came up. He was going to join from French side Rennes, but Norwich have gone a lot more. Well, they've deep dived more into the European market for Crnac, that's for sure. But this video, as it will be for videos we've done on the past here on the channel, we're going to be giving you a bit more insight and information about the player, about their goal record, of course, especially for a striker. You want to know that bit more about their position and also about the deal that was first reported by Fabrizio Romano and also Connor Southwell of the Pink 'Un earlier this morning. So first things first, Crnac, 20 years old, again fits the profile of a Johannes Hoftorp player, being young and an exciting up-and-coming talent. We've already seen with Callum Doyle, who's 20. We've seen Forsen Amankwa, who's 21. And now bringing in the 20-year-old, as I mentioned in the brief introduction, he's a Croatian youth international, has 9 appearances for his country from under 15s to under 21 level. Only scored 1 goal in those youth country games, but loads of players never tend to score anywhere near as many goals as they do at club level for their country. But a player who's clearly rated by his own International Football Association's development system, and good to see that. Hopefully he can go on and be a full-time Croatian international. Hopefully he goes on to be one of their best ever players for all I hope, and I hope he's certainly very good at Norwich City. But you would assume with him being a centre forward, he's going to be the second choice striker. It does seem as if Norwich were very much in the market looking for that, despite the deal being a hefty sum of money. We will get onto that in a second, but promising signs already. A player who clearly has got a lot of raw potential and has got clearly a lot of good ability to be coming from such a random league to then come to the Championship. Again, we'll get onto that in a second. But encouraging signs to see a young player who Norwich have reportedly been scouting for a long time. So they've got their man. And of course, as we've seen, Torup and Napa, they wanted to bring the average age of the squad down. They're doing just that by signing these young players. But moving on, as already mentioned, he is a centre forward. He's left-footed. So as I mentioned in the video about Amankwa Forsen, it's another left-footer being signed for Norwich City. We now have Ben Sene, who's left-footed, Callum Doyle left-footed, Forsen, who's left-footed, and now we have Crnac, who is left-footed. So a lot of left-footers coming into Norwich City. Clearly, if he maybe ends up being played in a front two along with Sargent, you can have a left-footer and a right-footer in your attack. He can also play anywhere across the forward line, so he's a very versatile player when he is playing along any attacking of a front three, which could be good to see. Norwich don't really have that many sort of left-footed attacking minded players. Do have Jonathan Rowe, but it looks as if he's on his way out to Marseille. You have Abu Kamara, who is more right-footed, but it looks like he's on his way out because he submitted a transfer request this morning. So it's good to have that versatility in your forward line and have a left footer that maybe you could play on the right so he can cut the ball inside onto his left, or a left footer on the left so he's a bit more natural when the ball comes to him on the left side. But if he's playing through the middle, which I'm sure he would believe is his best position, then hopefully we see him be all right. If he does sign very soon, we could see him maybe make a debut at the weekend against Sheffield United, or maybe we could see him play in the Carabao Cup match against Crystal Palace. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. But next up, as I mentioned, he's coming from a very obscure league. He's coming from the Polish First Division, and he joins from, so I'm going to have to look at my phone for this, that I've just got props up below me just to make sure I get this right. Rakow Częstochowa? I may have butchered that. I probably have. I'm sure there's someone out there who can pronounce that correctly for me. But apologies to any of their fans if they're watching if I have butchered your team's name. But very obscure, and Norwich have been like that in their transfer recruitment. Now signing Forson, who came from the Austrian league. We've been very active in South American markets. So again, the Norwich scouting team branching out several different routes, looking at again, they're looking at that obscure leagues maybe to unearth talented players and bring in these gems that barely anyone has heard of, apart from maybe a few teams who have done a bit of scouting on players, maybe as more academy signings to try and build them up and send them out on loan. Uh, but again, such an obscure league to really sign a player from, coming from the Polish division, where he's got a decent goal record. Again, we'll get onto that in a second. He originally joined the club for a deal of reported to be €1 million, and they have made a lot of money on this player. They made a very sizable profit, and that'll be great for them for their development as a club. But for Norwich, you've got to hope this price pays off. But getting onto that, this deal is worth £8.5 million plus bonuses, which in euros could take it up to €11 million. That is a lot of money for a player who's most likely going to be a second choice striker. But then again, you can counter argue that with the fact Norwich sold their third choice striker of last season in Adam Eder for the same amount of money. So they've reinvested their funds straight away in finding a replacement, which is very refreshing to see, because the only strikers Norwich have at the minute that are fully fit are Josh Sargent, of course, has played both championship games and scored on last weekend against Blackburn, and they have Kenaboa, who looks as if he's going to go out on loan to Notts County, with that deal sort of building up, and it's in the process of being finalised by Norwich City and Notts. But then we also have Ashley Barnes, who isn't fit and isn't going to be fit for a few more weeks. So it's very smart. It's a smart signing from Norwich. It makes sense. The fee maybe you could argue doesn't, but it could be that his club want as much money as they can get out of a young player, and you maybe think that that's a positive, that they want to get as much money as they can, because he's a young player with a lot of promise. He's played youth international football. He could well go on to play for the main Croatian national team, but we'll have to wait and see on that. And hopefully he gets quite a few games for Norwich City, because if he doesn't, then it's going to be a big issue. Realistically, if he's not playing for the first team that much for Norwich, then you would like to think maybe that could hinder his progress as a player. But again, this is what you're going to have to wait and see on the deal. Yet to be finalised, but it is very close with him having a medical. But just going on, as I mentioned earlier, to his goal record. Last season, got 13 goal involvements in 26 games, so one every other game. That's very good for a striker, you have to argue, albeit only 8 of them were goals, but then still getting 5 assists as a striker is just as important. Of course, you want to be the one scoring goals. Every footballer in the world wants to score goals, but if you can provide for your teammates and then create chances for them so they can score goals, you're just as important as a player. You don't want to be just the one getting on the end of through balls and smashing them in the back of the net. You want to be just as big a team player as you do an individual, which, if you go to the first bit of the mini documentary, Norwich City are doing it looks for the whole season, one of the very first things Johannes Torup told them was, it's not an I game, this is a we game. So instantly that goes into his ideology, that he wants everyone to be fully committed to the project and play their part, whether how important they are or maybe they're going to be more of a backup player in this system. But you have to be there for your teammates and you have to be good as an individual in order to do that and be fully committed to what's going on at the football club. But again, promise, a player who, even in this season so far playing in the Polish First Division, he scored 1 goal in 5 games, which you could argue isn't the best, but it can take time for players to properly crack on once a new season goes, especially if he's not a big first team player out there for, again, sorry, I'm gonna butcher this, Rakow Częstochowa. Maybe I've got that one right this time. We'll have to. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe someone's put a pronunciation video out there that I probably should have watched. But there you have it. There's your lot on Ante Crnac, who looks as if he's going to be Norwich City's next signing and their newest player Will he bring plenty of goals and assists to the team? We'll have to wait and see. Will he be dislodging the starting place of Josh Sargent? Probably not, but you never know. Sargent could get injured and he could maybe take his chance by the scruff of the neck, and he could prove why maybe he is worth the 8.5 million plus bonuses that Norwich City are willing to spend on him. I have been Freddie Humphrey Wakefield. You have been watching the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. What are your thoughts on the signing of Ante Crnac? Let us know in the comments below, rather. And please do like and subscribe to the channel. We're very close to 2,000 subscribers, and we would love to hit that as soon as possible. And again, thank you for your continued support. It's goodbye for now, and we'll see you here on the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel for the next video of ours.